And we are live. What is going on, everybody? I am excited for this today as I get on with a new friend of mine. If you don't know this guy, you've been under a rock, most likely. I got my boy Femi on the line who has way more Instagram followers than me, and he confirmed they are real. I'm teasing you, brother, but I remember us talking about that because haters hate, unfortunately.
I
But
do.
we are here today to talk to Femi about the secret sauce on what he's doing to still be landing some super high margin deals, still be getting good seven-figure land flipping years, and the systems that he's helping use to run his biz and teach some other people how to run theirs. So with that, I'm just going to grab links here for a second, y'all. I appreciate you being patient while we do that. While I'm doing that, Femi, man, I would love it. And I'm going to drop you the link too in the Zoom chat here.
Cool, cool.
Um, I would love it if you would tell everybody about your background and how you got started in our weird little internet niche of flipping dirt all over the country, man.
So, Ajay, first of all, I'm happy to be here. It's so interesting how everyone kind of has like different stories, but they're all similar stories, right? It's always,
Yep.
okay, I was doing this, and then I just was scrolling on YouTube, trying to figure out how to make money online, and then I stumbled upon land flipping, and then I just started doing it. And then I did a deal, and then I bought this for 5K and I 10x my investment, whatever. I hear so many stories like that. Mine is very
Yeah.
simple. I was an athlete at Long Beach State, and I remember I was just training extremely hard, multiple times a day, 3, 4 times a day, dialed in on my diet, all that. And my goal was originally to just be an athlete, be a professional athlete. And then that turned from that to COVID happening to me being like, all right, this is on pause. So let me figure out a way to make some money. Right.
Okay.
I dabbled in, like, I was doing
And
Amazon.
what year is this?
This was 2020.
Okay.
Yeah, so I dabbled in Amazon. I remember I started a blue light glasses store.
Okay.
And it was called Lux Lenses. I started a blue light glasses store. And I was just trying to sell the glasses, trying to run the ads, trying to figure that out. And I didn't like it. It just didn't appeal to me. And then I was like, you know what? I want to try something in real estate. And I watched this real estate wholesaling webinar. And then from there, I just kind of like dove into everything about wholesaling real estate, signing contracts. I ended up doing quite a bit of deals, but I had like a few deals. And I remember a 2 week stint where I just got cut out of some deals because what I did was I built up a really large buyers list, and I would just connect my, the wholesalers to the buyers. And what started happening is they started going around me just directly to the buyers.
Oh man, that's dirty.
Yeah, and so I was like, okay, I gotta find some more control here, and so that's what I ended up doing. And as soon as I said that, I saw a video about land flipping and how they made like multiple six figures on one deal, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
And they said they didn't use their own money, and but they said they took title, and I was like, wait, what's going on? And so I remember
Yeah.
that week I was in Mexico. I just watched just only land flipping videos, only that, and I just dove into it. And then 2021 is when I really just started just building, scaling, growing, learning. And then 2022, I joined Sumner Healy's program, and yeah, I was able to scale my business from there. I joined a lot more programs after that, and I uh just started scaling, man. That's pretty much it. So here I am today.
Sweet man. So let's this is exciting, especially as you're just talking through your journey in the sense of like, yeah, this is how so many people start is they see somebody who made a bunch of money in the biz, then they jumped in, right? And it sounds super sexy. And it is when you get some good deals going, don't get me wrong. Especially, man, I love the business now, don't get me wrong, but back in 21 and 22 and when we got started in 2020, it was a different game on both sides, right?
Yeah,
Doesn't mean there's not some super high margin deals out there. I was just looking at one I'm partnering with a guy on that we're buying for 450 that I think we'll be able to dispo at like 800, 850, maybe 900 if everything goes well, which it never does. But but a guy can dream on his pro forma, right? And so I say that to say there's still some really, really good deals out there. But man, why don't you walk me through, the way you ended your story was you said, I started scaling from there, right? And that's
yeah,
what I really want to be focused on here today. Is so many investors get stuck in the hamster wheel of doing like, dude, I'm doing like, I always say it's like the 0 to 3 deals a month, where they like might have a good month and then all of a sudden they get no deals, right? And it's frequent. I know one of my old mentors used to call it a yo-yo, where like you're working on acquisitions and now you're busy and you're working on dispo. And
yeah,
a quick side note is I can always tell when an investor is in that because I'll ask them, hey man, how's the business? And they'll start telling me about deals, right? Oh, I got this one deal that's doing this, and I got this one deal that's doing that.
Yeah.
Versus if I ask, how's the business? And like, man, if I ask you, you know what you're going to tell me about is overhead, hiring, firing, systems, tech stack, right? Like we're talking about the machine because that's the difference between a business owner versus somebody that's like stuck in it, trying to get it going, they're just focused on the money. They're just focused on the little deal to deal versus the operators are like, oh, I just made this like strategic hire. What's your compensation structure for your sales staff? What are you doing here? How's this look like? Right. It's a different conversation with people that have scaled, right? So tell me about that journey of scale. What was that decision like? What did your first few hires look like overseas versus domestic? Like just walk me through the journey, man.
Yeah, so it's funny because I just recorded a YouTube video about this, and I call it the 30 to 50K a month, or we say I try to go quarter over quarter, 90 to like 110K profit per quarter trap, right?
Okay.
That trap where like you like there's the bottleneck of the business is you because you haven't delegated yet. You can still do pretty well. You can still do 20K, 30K a month if you haven't delegated, but that's something that I was dealing with, I would say very late 2022 to early 2023. That's what I was struggling with. We're doing very well in the business, but like I was doing everything. I was a transaction
Right.
manager, I was an acquisition manager, I was all that. And so I just started like focusing on just, okay, how do you build a team and hire? And I've made a lot of mistakes along the way, man. Like I think I told you I hired someone in Mexico, actually. They were doing very well. They were a high performer. But then we were doing call reviews one day, and the guy just left the call, right? Just completely left. We're on a meeting just like you and I are right now, and
And he just dipped.
he just dipped. I never heard from him again. And I've been through,
What?
yeah, man. I've been through these stories so many different times with people that are just underperforming, not doing well to the point where like I know how to weed out the B player, the C player, the D player, so on and so forth. I know
Okay.
and we've created hiring processes so that way we know that, okay, when we hire someone, this person is going to go to war, right? And they're going to be ready to be on the phone and call that seller 100 times, 200 times, so on and so forth. They're not just going to take the low hanging fruit. They'll talk to the person that's like, I want $1 million. So they'll talk to people, they'll qualify people further, they'll do it all. And so as far as scaling goes, yes, delegation is everything. You can't be doing everything in your business. You just can't. And it's funny that you said that about the deals versus the system, because when I was starting out in my journey, I would get so excited about the deals closing and the money hitting the account. Now it's gotten to the point where like I'm almost numb to it. I'm like, okay, well, okay, we didn't do enough, right? Like, why? But okay, cool, we made 50 grand over here, but you only had 150 conversations,
It's
right?
true.
So that's what I'm looking at. And so I think
Yeah.
it's like you get to a certain level and then you're not really worried about that anymore. It's more so, how do I improve the machine
100%.
just continue to win and just get better? And that's where I am now. Yeah.
Yeah, man. That makes a lot of sense. I'm to the point now in my business where like I posted on my Instagram. It's funny. We got a 230K wire yesterday, but I was like, hey, this is misleading because we've also got 170K of money into this deal.
Yeah.
So, we made about 50 grand when it all washed out.
Nice.
But, some people just post the wires and it's like, hang on, there's a story here I want to be authentic about, right? And that's
Yeah.
like one of 3 or 4 closings we'll have this month. Um, but I just remember, man, like there was a switch that has flicked in me in the past year where like, especially in the past few months, I get so frustrated when we don't have a good 6-figure month, right?
Hmm.
Where I'm
Yep.
like, we made 80 grand this month. We got to get to, like, dude, I got to get back on the phones. Like, I got to get my dialer on, and I still make calls. I still close deals, but I got my headset right here, man. I was talking to a group. I was on a group of 100 people last week. And it was funny. I remember I was like, guys, and if you work your butt off and close enough deals, you too can own a $200 noise canceling headset so you can go close more deals, and it's just
Right.
really funny. I'm like, the reality is I'm super ADHD and I need to cancel out all the noise. Otherwise I get super distracted while making calls. But
Mm.
the reality is, man, you and I both know as business owners, you got to be able to lead your teams well, right? So you're talking about delegation, and it's
Yeah.
not just like I feel like people hear delegation and they're like, yeah, man, you make an SOP, you give it to somebody, and then you never do it ever again, or never look at it, or never think about it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So let's drill down on that for a second, Femi. Why don't you tell me like what does delegation look like, and then beyond that, you mentioned I'm going to ask you 2 questions in a row. Bear with me, but let's talk through delegation and how that goes hand in hand with identifying, recruiting, and training
Mhm.
A players, right? Because you said, hey, I'm not picking up C, D, B players anymore. What do
Uh,
A players look like? Where do I recruit them? How do I identify them? How do I train them? And then how do I delegate to them? So I know it's a super loaded question, man. I'm going to eat this piece of dark chocolate while you tell me.
Go for it. Okay. So as far as identifying A players, I mean, I use just normal job channels. So I've always used Indeed, online jobs. I've had a lot of success with Indeed and using the VPN on Indeed. So going
Okay.
like, putting my VPN in Brazil. I've done that before. Putting my VPN in Costa Rica and Mexico. I've done all these things and had really good prospects come in. Um, some that I've hired. Now, I also am able to use Instagram for hiring too. And I found
Mm,
that like the more that I just build my personal brand and just talking about the deals I'm doing, all those things, people just want to work for me. And so I sometimes will post jobs on there. As far as just finding talent. The other thing too with like the actual job description, I can get granular with that. There are things that I do in the job description to basically, if you didn't pay attention, if you didn't read through it, then I know that you didn't and that you're just automatically disqualified. So like somewhere in
mm,
there, I'll say, type red when you like type red as the first word, or give me the answer of 7 times 3, right?
mm.
And if they don't do that, then I'm like, hey, you're not paying attention. So
Right.
what I identify in a player as someone that is, I like to say, Johnny on the spot, and that means that they're hungry, they're motivated, they're organized. Those three things, right? And if I can essentially give them my culture, my SOPs, my process, and train them on that. And as long as you're hungry, motivated, and you're like you just want to learn, right? Like you want to learn, you don't feel like you know it all that, then I can mold you into where you're an A+ player, right?
Yep.
And that's what I've seen to work best. Like I've also hired people that were very experienced and came in with these like just like huge egos, right? To where they couldn't learn. And that's the
Yeah.
drawback, that you don't want to hire someone that like knows, they think they know it all, right?
Yeah.
And so like, or they come to your company and they're like, oh, well, we did this at my company. So we did this at the company I worked at before. And I'm like, so there are just like signs that you got to look out for with that. I'm trying to make sure I'm answering your question fully. You asked like it
No,
was,
this is good, man. This is good. It was like, how do you identify those A players,
yeah,
right? We're talking about attention to detail tests you're putting in those job descriptions, VPN, so you're able to hit local
yeah.
markets really well. So I'm digesting that well. Once people are in, man, I think to summarize what you just said there, I'll say two things. The first one is I can't teach something to somebody if they already know everything, right?
Exactly.
So I think and to put the nail in the coffin, man, I feel like the older I get and the more I learn, the more I realize how little I know about the world. Does that make sense?
There you go.
Like, and it's funny because I have a very, very unique skill set. I was coaching a group that brought me on as a guest for basically with 100 people on it, and they were diving into a real estate business for the first time, and I was explaining this concept that, guys, I want you to understand that when you are diving into a land flipping business, house wholesaling, whatever it is, you
Mhm,
think, like, when people ask, what do you do, Femi? You say, I'm a real estate investor, I'm a land flipper, I'm a whatever you say, right?
mhm,
Depending on who you're talking to.
mhm.
I flip properties, right? That's like my go-to is like if I meet somebody at church, it's like, what do you do? I flip properties. Like it just
Right, right.
keeps it vague enough where they're either like, whoa, or they're like, oh, cool, man. How's the market?
I just
And I'm
say
like, like depends who you ask, but anyways, my point being, I'm explaining to this group who's hearing all this for the first time. I say, guys, you think you're a real estate investor, you think you're in the real estate business,
mm,
but you're in the sales and marketing business,
yeah,
right? If you don't understand sales and marketing, which are a lot of the systems you focus on, if I understand correctly, right? It's like sales and marketing. Land is just a widget that has a ton of margin on it.
yep, just a product.
And so another example to really hit this point, man, and I think this conversation so good is I think about McDonald's is like the best example ever. And I remember reading in Rich Dad Poor Dad, right, which we talked about a few weeks ago together, where everybody gets started, right?
Yep, yep,
And um, Robert Kiyosaki and Ray Kroc are with a group, and it's just like, hey, what business am I in? Being in McDonald's, and everybody's like, the burger business, obviously. It's like,
uh,
biggest real estate holder in the world besides the Catholic Church, if I remember correctly,
Right.
right? And so their whole model is based on buying the land underneath the buildings and then having these franchisees lease that land from them, right? So it's a massive, massive real estate company that sells burgers, right? And takes a percentage of profits from these franchisees. And they have built this insanely large organization because of it. So it's really funny, right? So you're telling me McDonald's is more of a real estate company than any of us are, but we're more of a sales and marketing machine than McDonald's in like a weird way, right? Now, I'm not saying they don't understand sales and marketing better than us, but
Right.
I heard somebody say the other day that, like, hey, um, you're complaining about your lead quality when the cashier at McDonald's has a 100% close rate today.
That's good.
And it's a funny perspective shift. They've done a really good job bringing in qualified leads. But man, I'm all over the place here. To bring it back to your point, though, you're bringing on good talent. Let me ask you about your high margin deals, Femi, because I think that's something people really struggle with when they're in land. It's really easy to get into like, oh, dude, I'm flipping an infill lot here. I'm making 3Gs here, 5Gs here. That stuff's easy, right? Anybody can do that. You pick up a headset, you get a dialer, you pull a list off PropStream, you can get going for $200 a month and start flipping some infill lots if you want, right? I feel like that's like my scarcity, like backup plan. Like if I just lost everything, right? If I went bankrupt, I could throw on a headset and flip some infill lots and make a quick 20 grand a month like that all over again if I had to, right? Um, my question for you, man, is as you coach people and you mentor people that are trying to bridge from, we see most investors kind of in like a 12 to 20,000 buck margin, I feel like, for a
Mhm.
pretty average deal size. How do you educate and coach and mentor people up to, I think a lot of what you teach is like 50K plus deals a lot of times, right,
Yeah.
man? So
Yeah.
tell me about that formula. Tell me what we can learn from what you're doing and what you're seeing works in 2025.
So I do everything in threes. That's how I think.
Okay.
The human mind actually works best in threes. So what I would say is brand is one of them, and I'll explain brand. So
Okay.
a lot of people, when they start these businesses, they just kind of use these like business in a box websites, business in a box mailers, all these things, and they don't think about how it's going to look on the other end of it. And I put like very, very heavy thought to how it's going to look on the other end. Now, I've bought property from colleges, right? I've had colleges call us and say, like, the head of finance call us and say, hey, your letter stood out to me. We have like 15 others, but the way this was written made me feel like it was legitimate. And
Mm,
so I put like very deep time and thought into like how we're writing it, what it looks like, and then further than that, what the website looks like after that.
good. Interesting. Okay.
So brand is a really big one, right? And also just like, okay, when they call us, what's the first thing they hear? Is it positive? Regardless of what they're saying to us, is how we're responding and reacting to them. Is it extremely positive, and is it coming from the place of serving? Right. So this all has to do with brand, all of it. Now, second is follow-up, right? Especially with these higher margin deals, depending on the profile of person, it really depends on, okay, look, some of it's going to be low hanging fruit, but some other people you're going to have to follow up 50, 60, 70 times.
Okay. Yep.
So are you going to be willing to follow up 50, 60, 70 times over the course of 6 months, 12 months, so on and so forth to get that high margin deal? Right.
Yep.
And I've gotten deals where they called in and it was like, yeah, I want to sell. We have this issue that we need solved. So let's get it done. And we got it done within 45 days. I've also had other deals where, I've personally had hundreds of conversations with one person to get that deal.
Yeah.
And so you got to be willing to do both of those, right? And then it's just leaving no stone unturned with all of your deals. There's been deals, and I've had to learn this the absolute hardest way, where they'll be in our CRM and we're just kind of like, this doesn't really look like. I just kind of left this. I didn't turn over the stone fully. I didn't look at all of it. I didn't look at the comp. I didn't look at like everything because first glance, I was like, this doesn't look like a deal. So leave no stone unturned as well. Like make sure that you go in deep and like really do your due diligence on every single property that comes into your CRM. And then the other thing is just consistent marketing and marketing at the right things as well. So like if you want to do a deal where you're making 60K, 100K, so on and so forth, why are you sending offers out for 10 grand
Yeah.
or 20 grand? Why are you doing it? It doesn't make any sense. So bring up your average offer price. Make sure that you're in at like, okay, I'm in at 70. I need to be exiting at 140. If I'm in at 140, I need to be exiting at double. And that's what I teach.
Sweet, man. Pretty simple. I love it. In terms of like what marketing channels are you seeing that are working well in 2025? I've got
Yeah,
what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing, but I'd love to see if you've got anything different in your eyes and ears right now.
texting and mail has always been doing well. Mail's always done well for me since I started. I have never turned off my mailers.
Okay.
Texting is doing well as well. I want to beef up the cold calling though, so I'm gonna start doing that for the next several months.
Sweet, man. That's what I'm seeing performs really well with a lot of folks right now, especially just sheerly on like a return on ad spend is texting and cold calling is always the best. Direct mail is good if you're dialed,
Yeah.
right? Like you got to have your systems dialed. You can't afford to be sloppy anymore if you're going to spend the money on direct mail is the biggest thing, I think. Would you agree with that?
You used to be able to be extremely sloppy. I could go on Google and
Used to be
find,
nothing but sloppy.
yeah, I can go on Google and type 2-page letter template. I could send that out, and in 60 days, I'll have a deal I make 50K on. That
Yep.
actually happened to me. So, like, I know that, like, so you can't do that anymore. Can't do that anymore because these guys have 25, 30, 40 of these, the same thing in their mailer, with the same double window, with the same, it looks the same. So, it doesn't work the same way anymore. You have to know exactly what you're doing to get
Yep.
your results with mail.
Totally, man. I'll tell another story too you're talking about follow up, of following up with a lead 50, 70, 100 times. I had this deal that I just closed in January that I absolutely loved, man. It came into our pipeline in July of 2023. I still remember this thing coming into our pipeline. And I pay attention to asking prices a lot. So like I have it in the stuff I train on. A lead manager's goal is really to book an appointment for a closer and to get an asking price out of a seller, right? And obviously some level of qualification that should go without saying. But after that, the two desired outcomes I've got are an asking price and a booked appointment for my closer.
Mhm.
I remember my lead manager had gotten an asking price out of the seller of about 240 for this property, and I underwrote it and comped it at about 500. And I was like, okay, we're buying this deal, right?
Yeah.
And then 2 days later, I look back in our CRM, and I check my CRM more than every other day, but I'm just saying, in terms of monitoring the team's pipeline,
Mhm.
and it had been marked closed. And I was like, yo, why is this not under contract? Right. And I go back in, I listen to the call, and the short of it is I had a new AM that kind of dropped the ball on it.
Yeah.
And so my main acquisition manager at the time was on maternity leave. When she came back, I said, I want you to run this lead. Right. She did, got a verbal, and then he went dark on us. And so had her follow up pretty aggressively for a while. Got nothing. I remember, it's funny. I was at the All In event in Dallas. Carlos Reyes was running this event. He's a pretty big name. I don't really know what he's up to or what he does, but he got together a great speaking list, man. It's a bunch of like big names you've heard, regardless of if you like them or not on the internet.
Mhm.
Wes Watson and Andy Elliott and Chris Crone and Brad Lee. And it was a heavy hitter room. I don't know how much he spent on speakers for that event, but it had to have been close to $1 million because it was every guy you could go pay 50 to $100,000 to show up to an event. You know what I mean? That is trending on YouTube. And at that event, you're juiced up, right? I'm like, I want to close a deal right now. And I think of this lead, right? And so I'm like, I get my personal cell phone, right? And I just call up the lead there. He picks up on the double dial. We talk for 20 minutes. I get to a verbal, fizzles out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, man, this is December of 2023.
Mhm.
So I continue to call him extremely regularly. Every time's a different objection: partner spouse versus timing versus timing. He had like three different types of timing objections. One was like hunting lease, my brothers, my this, my that. I'm going to go out there. My wife doesn't want to drop the Florida license. Like, dude, it was just everything under the sun, man.
Yeah.
Eventually, I get him under contract this past December. I closed him in January. We bought it for 240. I put it up on the market. Within 30 days, we had a cash offer at 480.
There we go.
But dude, I followed up with that lead probably 60 times myself, not including what my two AMs had put into it, right? And I had to overcome several objections, right? And I did it over the span of a year and a half,
Yep.
right? So many people look at this business and they're like, oh man, like there's no easy deals. Nobody wants to sell. There's no motivated sellers. It's like they're out there. You're just not working for them, you
Yep.
know? And there's such a work component that goes into this. So, Femi, I want to ask you, man, in terms of like workload, right? What are you seeing in terms of like KPIs or workload, or just like what does it look like in terms of teams or marketing or workload? Like, what can you give the people watching so they
Yeah.
have good expectations to actually be getting deals in 2025?
So I mean, it depends on what the goals are, right? I mean,
Totally.
anyone that comes to me and says I want to make over $500,000 a year profit, so I want to make $500,000 this year, you need to be having at least 175 conversations a month, at
Good.
the very least.
Right.
For me, we're shooting for anywhere from 250 to 350 conversations per month, right? So like the amount of people that you talk to has a lot to do with your success. And you brought up an interesting point, which made me think about just like when you're new at this, you might see like a highlight tape or something like that to where you feel like you don't have to follow up that many times, and you feel like you're kind of just looking for the low hanging fruit. But Ajay just said that he spends a lot, like you spent hours and hours and hours talking to this person. I feel like a lot of the time when the first objection comes, people don't follow up after that. So if it's the first thing like, oh, my wife, oh, my dog, oh, this, oh, that,
My dog.
I get excited when I hear that. I'm like, cool, we got a deal to work now. And this is
Yeah.
something that like I once you actually get past the objections, it's actually really fun because then you learn, like you start learning human psychology. You're like, oh wait, the reason why he said that is not because it's not even because that's actually the issue. The
Yep.
issue is I haven't he doesn't trust me enough for me to for me to go forward and for him to do a deal with me. That's why he's giving me all this hoopla, right?
Yep.
So when you kind of go through that and you figure that out, it becomes really fun to solve that problem and keep
100%.
going. And just kind of like kind of hold hand someone to the decision that they've kind of already made, but they just need a little bit of a push.
Yep.
So yeah, but the biggest thing is just conversations and this making sure that you never turn off your marketing, those two things. And then let's say your marketing is flopping, right? Let's say you've gone through like 6 months and your marketing is flopping. Well, then I found that very often it's not the marketing's fault, right? It's the other legs in the business. It's the follow up. It's the conversations. It's how you're setting subtasks every time that you get off the phone with a person. Are you recording your calls? It may even be your call performance. Are you reviewing your calls? It's usually like another function of the business. Now, let's say like if we have a month in our business where things are lower, those are the things I'm looking at, right? I'm looking at conversations, follow-ups, touch points. I'm looking at how many emails are sent, texts. I'm looking at the conversations that we were having. I'm looking at all that stuff. Now, if all that stuff looks pretty good, then I look at the mailer, and then I go and I listen to answer force calls, and I listen to like, okay, are we getting a lot of scam allegations? Are we getting a lot of these things? So like when you just systematize your business and then you start to look at like every portion of it, it's not luck. You realize that it's not luck. It's very calculated. And if you have a goal, okay, I want to make 500 grand, I want to make a mil, I want to make 2 mil, whatever the number is, you can set that goal and backtrack backwards from that with the data that you already have. So yeah, this business becomes really fun when you're thinking about it from that lens.
Totally. 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 I agree. And on that point, I often say any deal that's not a price objection is a deal.
Yeah.
And so I think so many people get fixated. Like when I hear these objections of like, ah, yeah, call me back in 30 days. I'm like, well, it might have actually been a price objection. They just didn't want to say no to you. Right. Um, and so to your point, yeah, you start getting past some of these that are smoke screens, or you get past some that are really just kind of BS, right?
Yeah.
So you can address the real root. You're going to do so many more deals at the end of the day. Like I find for me and what I train in the inner circle with Land Closers Academy, it's so much of like, are you doing enough of the work that actually gets the deal done? And what do you
Mhm.
sound like on the phones? Right.
Yeah.
And if we can just do crank up those two things on top of having good systems, on top of filling your funnel with some good data, on top of making sure you're making the right offers, everything you're talking about plus everything I'm talking about, man, there's no reason you shouldn't be doing deals right now, right? Are they
Yeah.
harder to come by now than they were in 2020? Sure. Like, welcome to business, man. In every business ever, you have an opportunity and then you have adoption, and then the cost of attention increases, right? That's what marketing is. And there's different levels of arbitrage. Like, I know Hormozy often talks about when TikTok and TikTok ads first
Mhm.
started getting like some really good traction. He was talking about how TikTok shops would scale to 1 million a month in like 30 days because there was such a void of people running ads at first and a massive amount of attention, right? Over time, you can imagine basically, if you've read any of Russell Brunson's books, how that
Yeah.
always looks is they keep it cheap so that people get massive adoption on the platform, and then they basically like 3x costs overnight because they can. And you might say, wait, that would kill a lot of the small businesses. Great, they profit on the big businesses. They don't really care about the small businesses, unfortunately, right? Meta
Right.
ads, like Google is kind of the biggest thing. That's what Russell Brunson always talks about, which is why if you study his stuff, he cares so much about owned media because he feels the scars from every time there was the Google slap, is what they called it, when Google would, you know, crank up their leads. He made all his money doing, I think, potato guns, and then they 5x the cost overnight. So to your point, I think back in 2020, you're talking about, hey, you got to have 175 conversations and make as many offers as you can on those. Well, you could do 10% of that 5 years ago, right? Does
Oh,
that
yeah.
mean right now it's a bad business? Absolutely not, man. I got a lot of friends making between a half million and $2 million a year running the biz,
Yeah.
right? So it still works. It's just a different model. You got to be okay cutting prices on Dispo to move properties quicker. You got to be okay cranking up the work on the acquisitions to make sure you have enough lead flow where things actually make sense. You got to make sure you're actually training your teams now. We don't have the
Right.
luxury of just sending out blind offers and getting back signed letters necessarily. You might get some good leads out of it, right? But you just got to run a real business now, is kind of the difference, which is why the systems are so important of it, man. You have a good thought?
Yeah, I think that it's so important to just align your life, simplify your life so that you can focus on this too. That's the other thing.
Yeah,
It really is we're talking about systems and KPIs and all these things, but like I feel like even if you dial all those things in, if things are not right up here, if things are not right in your life, if things are misaligned, you got all this stuff going on, it's going to be difficult for you to elevate properly in your business. And so that's one thing I'll also try to teach because if like everything is just frazzling, you're like, oh, I just need the money. Like, no, like figure out ways to align your life with you growing in your business. Figure out ways to simplify your life for you to grow as far as you can in your business. Because
totally.
the mental aspect of this is tough. Like especially if you're starting and you go a couple months without deals and you're still spending money and you put in a lot of work and you're doing all that. That's difficult. And you have to be able to persist through those hard times. And if life is all frazzled around, it's going to be very difficult to do that. And I've seen a lot of people quit just because of that. Not because the business didn't work, not because things weren't working for them, not because they weren't talking to sellers, but it's because something else is going on. Right. And so, I try to just have as much control, well, not try, I do have as much control over my life and my time as I possibly can. And I've done that when I wasn't making any money. Right. And so if things are frazzled now, more money is not going to solve the problem. That's the other
Right.
thing too. So
Yeah.
yeah, just be very intentional about that as well.
That's a good point, man. So let's transition a bit and talk about your working life, because I know you well enough to know you travel a good bit. I think last time we had chatted, you told me you just booked some first class tickets over to France, if I
Yeah.
remember right. Right. So you were going to France with the wife and the new baby, man. So you're a new father. Congratulations. You're a husband. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Um, Tell me
Likewise.
about what's that?
I said likewise on being a husband. Yeah.
Yes, man. Thank you. We celebrated 1 year on Sunday, so that was a lot of fun. Appreciate it, man. Talk to us about what you do in terms of both, like, I don't even want to say work-life balance because that's the wrong terminology. I feel like most entrepreneurs are almost like a work hard, play hard type deal, where it's like I tell my wife all the time, we kind of go through seasonality where like we have foot on the gas for a
Yeah.
bit. Hey, you're basically not going to see me for 2 weeks, and then we come out of it and it's like a very present season, because you kind of, it's like I feel like entrepreneurship feels a lot more like stair steps to me rather than it just being like this or just being like so talk to me about like what does your travel look like? What does your day to day look like? What does your home life look like, man? Uh Walk me through some of that.
Yeah, man. It definitely is a lot of seasonality. And so this is one thing I will say. I made sure that when I was in my early 20s that I consistently just put a lot of money away. So that way
Okay.
I don't have to like if I go the next 2 years without closing any deals at all or doing anything like new
You're
money,
chilling.
I'm good, right?
Yeah.
And I made sure to set it up that way very early. So that's the first thing. So I don't have this thing of like, oh, I need more money. I need more money. It's more for me building and just I want to build an empire for my daughter, right? That's where it
Good.
comes from. I want to build legacy for my daughter. I want her to look back 5, 10 years from now and be like, wow, my dad really he just put it in and he made things happen. And now I can fly private, right? And now I can do this, and now I can. So that's what I want. So as far as there definitely is seasonality, man. I will say that my wife, when she was pregnant, I had this kind of thing. I was like, man, like I'm kind of chilling. We're doing deals. This is great. And I didn't go as hard as as it maybe I should have, if that makes sense. Like I'm kind of just like, like okay, it's cool. We're gonna do deals. I'm gonna help people. Everything is good. Um, and I feel like it's because I was trying to take care of her. I feel like now though, since my daughter was born, I've had this thing where like, gosh, I work a lot. I work a lot when it comes to doing deals, when it comes to managing my team, when it comes to helping clients, when it comes to filming content. That's really what my days look like. And then it's just a lot of training, focusing on my body, focusing on just being a good dad, focusing on learning too. Because you said like, I feel like the more you advance, the less you realize you know. That's the other thing. Like I don't know anything. Like I've done a lot. I've had some success, great, but like I feel like I know less than 1% of what there is to know to get
Right.
where I want to get to, if that makes
Right.
sense. And so yeah, that's essentially what it's spent on. I have a good amount of free time, I would say. Um, but I try to fill that free time with learning something. Try to fill that free time with making myself better in some kind of way, learning a new skill. I'm learning how to surf, you know. So these are things that like I just yeah, just I guess it's just filled with like enjoying life, being a dad, being a businessman, and working on these legacy plays. So yeah.
Cool, man. I love it. That's great. That's great. Well, sweet man. I think we are to a point where I feel like you've dropped some gas. I want to bridge and ask what if you could leave people with, we'll do two pieces. Number one is just a piece of advice for anybody that's looking to grow scale their land investing business.
Mhm.
And then number two is a book recommendation. So you have a little bit of time in the back of your brain to be thinking about one book, because I know you're a reader. But on the forefront, man, one piece of advice for land investors in 2025. I see you looking back at the book game.
Yeah.
I got mine in my view right this way, so I get it. Let's start with that piece of advice for investors in 2025, man. What would you want to leave people with?
Be persistent and believe in the model and believe in your ability to do a lot of deals. Believe in it. And I would also say like don't a couple things. Don't get caught up in shiny object syndrome. This thing works. It works very well. It really does. And then also, when you go into these communities, get inspired by the wins. Don't get envious of the wins. Get inspired. Like make those wins pick up the phone, like make you pick up the phone like 10 more times.
It's
Because
good.
right, don't make the wins be like, oh, like, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing wrong? I've seen a lot of people do that. So that's what I would say as far as advice. Just be persistent, man. Like if you're persistent and you don't give up, you're going to make a lot of money. You're going to be profitable.
Totally.
That's what I would say. Book recommendations. I would say,
Before you do that, real quick, I want to
yeah.
say, yes, I think persistence. Uh, I think I just want to add a piece of like, if everybody just expanded on their expectation for time of what persistence
Mm,
looks like,
yes,
right?
yes,
We'd be having a different conversation. So here's what I mean by that is, man, I'm 5 years into this thing, and so are you, right? And I think you and I both realize, wow, like I talk with Sumner Healy a lot on like the magic of year three in the business. When you
yep,
hit,
yeah,
that like when you get over that third year, there's like a magic that hits where like capital makes more sense, the business makes more sense, you start to understand it. And so
yeah.
I'm at the point now in my career when I'm meeting, friends that are starting entrepreneurial journeys. I'm like,
Mhm.
hey man, don't expect any like I don't want to say don't expect it because I don't want to speak that into them necessarily. Because I had some early wins, I had some really good early wins.
Yeah,
I always encourage them that like at year three it feels easier, right? And it's hard to explain that to people that haven't quite hit that yet. But there's something mathematical that clicks in your brain. But I think if I called you up and said, hey Femi, does land flipping work? I've been persistent for 30 days, dude. You're like, exactly. You would laugh, right?
yeah, yeah,
So there's a point there where it's like, well, dude, like you haven't been doing this long enough, right? Like let's do this for a minimum of 90 days before you expect to see any traction, right? So Patrick Bet David talks about you see a first level of change in 21 days, a second level in 90, and then after that it's a year, right? And so
yeah,
as I'm setting goals, like here's kind of what we're looking at is 3 weeks, 3 months, a year, and then after that we've got to revamp on what does that next set look like.
mm,
So anyways, man, just as you're talking about persistence, I feel like there's two pieces there in persistence I want to draw out.
yeah.
Before you get to your book recommendation too, I want to ask everybody who's here live with us if you have any questions for Femi. I'm sure he'd be willing to stay on for another couple of minutes and answer them. So feel free to drop them in the live chat. I'll do my best to monitor that. But with that, give us this book, man. Give us this book and like either a lesson you learned from it, how you used it, why you're recommending it, something to leave us with.
So there's so many, but the one that just came top of mind, just 'cause we're talking about the persistence and all this, is "Choose Your Enemies Wisely" by
Oh, come on. You know I'm a PBD fan.
yeah, and so am I. So, man, that one, and I feel like I did that before I even read the book. But there are people that just don't want you to win. There are people that don't want you
True.
to do well. There are people that want you to, oh, how's that little real estate thing going? How's that going?
Yeah.
And they go, oh, you should just get your job. Go back to your job. There are people that want that for you, right? And so you have to remember that, and especially when the times get hard, when things are rough, when you're like I don't know what to do, you have to remember those enemies, remember
Yeah.
those people. And like I get fired up talking about this because I've had that, I still have it today, like even like from at every level in your life that you accelerate and you attain more success and you build more and you build more and more and more and more, there's always going to be someone or something trying to pull you down from it regardless, right, at every single level. So just be very aware of that, and pick things, people, situations, places out that you use when you're like when you're on your last breath and you're tired and you're like, damn, I don't know if I can keep doing. Think about that.
Yeah.
Think about that guy that was like, oh, how's that little business going?
Yeah.
Think about that. Think about the person that's like, oh, like just all these little negative, condescending comments that you get. Think about those things when it's time to persist, when it's time to push forward. And that's helped me, man, more than anything. Cause you just said like time horizon. Sometimes we need those fumes to run off of. Cause it's not always easy. And I want to just be very real about that. This thing is not always easy. After you already, even after you've already had success, you still have tough days,
Totally.
have tough months. And the people that act like they don't, I'm just kind of like, come on, man. We all do, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, choose your enemies wisely and use that to drive you to every point in your life that you want to be. So,
100%, man. 100%. That's so good. That's so good. Well, sweet. Let's switch over to Q&A here for a bit. I see at least one good question in the comments right now. I'm gonna hit a little refresh, make
cool.
sure I'm not missing anything. But my buddy Josh says, so what systems do you use to make calls, if I may ask? So that might be a tech stack question.
Mhm.
What are you using for dials on your team?
So we use Ring Central to make calls.
Okay.
You're talking about like cold calling, then Mojo.
So
Uh,
Mojo for cold calls, and then
yeah.
yeah, for
I
Ring
heard about
Central.
another one. I don't remember what it was now. I've written it down so I could do research on.
Ready mode, maybe. I feel like that's what I hear a
Yeah,
lot of people
that was
using.
it. That was it.
Okay.
Yeah, that was it. I'm gonna do research and look into that one. Yeah, but Ring
Sweet.
Central
Yeah.
is good. It allows us to record our calls. There's even like places where you can communicate with your team, but we use Slack. But yeah, Ring Central, I've been using that since pretty much day one. I love it. Oh, the other thing too, they added the AI notes thing. So I think a lot of things have this now. They're one of the first to do it, where like after you get off the call, as long as you record it and you turn on the AI thing, it tells you exactly what was happening in the call. So
Yeah.
whenever calls are done, I have my team just post those notes and then I listen to the call recording. It's fantastic. So yeah.
Okay. Sweet, man. Oh, that's good. Okay. I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat here. I'm gonna refresh one more time to make sure I didn't miss anything. But man, thank you so much for being on here today. I think you dropped some really good gems just as people are again growing businesses in 2025. It's important to be listening to people that are still doing deals, right? So how can people connect with you? How can they get a hold of you, man? How do we reach the Mr. Femi in the world?
Yeah. Yeah, YouTube and Instagram. We're on YouTube very consistently. YouTube is just Olufemi Ajose. If you look that up, just look up my name, you'll find my YouTube. And then Instagram is the Olufemi B, and then you'll find me on Instagram as well.
Sweet, man. Olufemi's a cool name. Where's your family from?
Nigeria. My dad is
Nigeria.
Nigerian.
Have
Yeah,
you been?
I haven't. I've been to Ghana. I need to go to Nigeria though. So
Okay. I've heard the big city in Nigeria is like wild.
yeah, Lego State. Yeah.
Yeah. Because the population's like popping off over there, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there. I know a couple guys that have just been moving to Africa.
Wow.
Maybe one of these days I'll join, but
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
I haven't been able to go to Nigeria yet. I need to though. So
It's
yeah,
like a blowing up market, man. I know I don't want to get too far into this rabbit hole now, but I know like China has been investing in Africa and Eastern Europe like
yeah.
super aggressively the past decade. So do with that what you will, but they've also been buying up all our land, and you get on the phone to sell
Yeah,
it.
Are
Are
you
you
Chinese? We get it all the time.
Yeah, that's how you know a real land investor right there,
Yeah.
right? Is I remember training up my team like, hey, is there a reason these sellers are always asking us if we're China? And I'm like, there's a reason. I don't know if we need to dive into it. Uh,
You
it's
guys are
funny,
nuts,
man.
man. But hey, we get the deals done, so that's what matters.
Exactly. Well, Femi, thanks so much for being on, man. Guys, follow him on YouTube and Instagram. He's a happening guy who's doing deals, and so this was great, man. If there's anything else I can ever do, don't be afraid to holler at me. But
Likewise.
appreciate you being on here, man. Appreciate your time today, and I know people got some good stuff out of it. So thanks so much, man.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having me. All right.